Action Comics 975, which is written by Dan Jurgens with a story by Paul Dini as the backup. It's a bigger issue, it cost a little bit more. And
$1.
yeah, a little
Just a
bit.
dollar.
Yeah. Doug Mankey did the first story in terms of art, and then Ian Churchill did the second. Oh, I assume he did the second, and that's why it was to artist.
Yes.
Yes.
I never noticed any weird changes in between the pages.
No.
Anyway, so yeah, this is the second part, and Clark and Lois. John disappeared at the end of Superman last week. They rush off to the fake Clark apartment, and they're searching. Fake Clark shows up, and we basically most of the main story. Obviously, the backups another thing, but most of the main story was the reveal of who this was. That was the whole thing, and we got a fantastic series of pages where whoever Fake Clark is, and I'm building to it. I'm not saying who it is yet. Whoever Fake Clark is knows who he is at this point. You remember that just before the start of this crossover, at the end of Action Comics a couple of weeks ago, he seemed to remember who he was, and he's like, "Superman, you forgot me, and he starts turning into all of these villains. He's Lex,
It's this fantastic
Brainiac.
montage, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. It's glorious. It's especially because the first couple, Superman's like, that you're Lex, you're Brainiac, and then by the third one, he's like, no, you're not him, and he's like, well, yeah, so say my name, and all I can think is Heisenberg, by the way, when he said say my name.
They wear similar hats.
Can I do?
Good job we're in spoilers already.
Oh dear. Yeah. So obviously, eventually, and it's actually Lois who kind of starts the sentence before you get to the 2-page spread of who it actually is, and it is, of course, Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were wrong, Pete.
Well, tell you were all wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Why am I specifically wrong?
Because you specifically shot this one down last week when we put it out there as a possibility. You were like, no,
Whoa.
this doesn't make any sense.
Wait a minute. No. Wait a minute. That's not. I specifically remember saying that I was okay with this as the possibility. It was the lesser of the three options we brought up, but I even speculated that he did something to himself, that he didn't know who he was.
You were saying it wasn't his style.
Oh yeah, because it was
And
more
that's what the
elaborate.
backup-
Feel
for.
like him at all.
Because usually he would know what he was doing, but they explained that in this issue. So
Yeah.
up you, yeah, ginger parasite, pathetic piece of scum, piece of shit, twerp.
Did you guys notice what Lois was wearing through the build-up?
The build-up.
Yeah. So
Did not.
when they go to the apartment, she's wearing purple and orange.
So she is.
Yeah. So I thought that was a fun little nod. Like he was giving it away. Like if you're watching a movie and you go, "Oh, weird, okay," and then you go back and look back through it, it all pops up. Like the color red in Sixth Sense.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
So
Yeah, so that's what most of the main story is. It's this big reveal. It's him going through all this, and then goading them and saying, "Well, you forgot about me. You didn't come. I'm taking John away because you cared about him more." He actually says that before we find out who it is, giving you a sense of the jealousy and the sort of the immature nature of who it might be.
What also was when they go to the fridge at Fake Clark's house, it looks like John had been eating there. Because we've seen in the build up to this, he's constantly eating ice cream and sweets and, he's an 11-year-old kid. Yeah. And then they open Fake Clark's refrigerator and it's filled with all the same stuff. So I thought that was also a nice little touch. That to Mixie's Ptillik, whatever, Mr. M.
Just call him Mixie.
Yeah, Mixie. When they got an actual child, they had no more need for this imp.
Yeah.
Which I like that motivation, kind of for him.
It is. It's really playing up that he is a child at heart, and it's symbolically that he kind of represented Superman being a parent, almost in the way he had to treat Mxyzptlk in the past. But now that's not necessary because we can have all those stories with John.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously the big sort of cliffhanger we end the main story on is that Mixie, being so spiteful that he is actually making people forget that John existed. Lois doesn't remember who he is at the end of the issue. So that was it. It was actually the main part of the story was very simple in terms of it was just mostly the reveal, but it was all of it was
It
entertaining.
was a very fast read as well because it was just
Yes.
big splash page
One.
of who could it be? Like each one was the different person, was a full page, but it worked.
Oh, it worked. Yeah, it was big. It felt epic. It felt like we'd been building up to this reveal since Rebirth started with that first issue of Action, and
It feels really earned that
Yeah.
that it waited so long to play it out.
Right.
yeah, I mean that's what 9 months, something.
9
like that?
months,
Yeah.
10, 9, 10, give or take.
Well, yeah,
Well,
it
because the
started in
Mr.
June.
Oz stuff had started, and then
Right.
Well, I'm thinking
got through
specifically.
Doomsday.
I'm specifically
Yeah.
thinking Fake Clark when he showed up at the first start of Action. That's where I'm sort of starting.
That was right in like the
Yeah.
first issue, right?
Yeah, that was the first issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're like, "Who's this Clark Kent?" And but it really became an issue after that first arc, after Doomsday was all said and
Yeah.
done.
It's also obviously with it being double shipping, that's twice the normal amount of issues in that time. So it's a good chunk of story as well as a good
Yep.
chunk of time.
Which, by the way,
Well, and
means-
we didn't focus on it too much until recently, which was nice too. Like,
yeah, he was just there in the
when-
background. He was popping up,
Yeah.
and we're going, "Wait, why is there another Clark?" And it was just kind of CD'd and
Yeah.
and it does complicate the Superwoman stuff because of I guess we'll talk about that when we get Superwoman, but the whole New 52 Clark and Lois type thing, it kind of, not that it muddles it, but it makes it more complex, I think.
I don't think it muddles it because I think I don't think we can speak fully to it until we see how Reborn ends. I think Superwoman has some hints about where Reborn's going to go, and we can talk about that when we get there. But
Having not
But
read
yeah.
Superwoman, I will need you guys to explain this for me as
We
well.
will.
we'll get to it. We'll save it for.
It just, because I thought that the New 52 Clark, or the New 52 Superman and this Clark Kent worked hand in hand, and now being revealed that it's Mixie,
Yeah.
it's not as clear that one has to do with the other. So I thought that was a nice curveball Jurgens threw.
Here's a question. Mixie being fifth dimensional and, as we see in the backup story, is aware of various versions of reality. And we can talk about that in a bit. But like, is like part of all this? Is he aware that like reality is being altered? Is he clued in on this?
I think he might, but ultimately he doesn't care because it's just everything is so crazy for him anyway. As long
He's
as he
very
has,
self-centered.
yeah,
It's all about Mixie. He doesn't care about everyone else. It's Superman forgot him. And even when we get to the backup, he encounters Oz. So, I don't think he knows or cares that reality's been messed up or who did it. He's just more upset that someone took him out of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that leads us on to the story, the backup story by Denny, which is basically Mixie explaining to John what's happened and where he's been. So he was the prisoner, which actually kind of weirds things up a little bit.
Was he?
Does it?
Well,
I don't think
timeline.
he was.
Well,
I thought he was.
So you don't think he's the prisoner
No.
that escaped last issue?
No, because he would have had to be there when Robin was there. And if they line up...
Well,
See, this is where
Red
this is
Robin.
this. Okay,
That's just why I'm saying it's
Yeah.
muddy, because
I'm saying he definitely is because Oz says he took him off the board, right? Like that's the conversation he has with Oz. Is that
Yeah,
Oz is
and
like, no, I don't want you interfering.
and then he's in
keeping
his
you out the
cell
way.
and he's doing scratch marks to say to keep track of
Right.
when
Now
he
this is where I'm going to say he's a fifth dimensional being. Maybe there's nothing to say he can't alter time. I mean, we think of Morrison's Action Comics. He's jumping over time constantly.
Yeah, the whole Superman will save me. It doesn't ring. I think it's someone else.
But
I think
that's
that's gonna-
basically what he says in this issue, though. He talks about
Yeah.
how Superman's going to come for him.
Like
See,
he's
I
just convinced Superman's going to come. And it goes back to this idea that Superman is like his parent, where he's like, nah, it's cool, Dad's coming.
I wish then they would have put that in the art a little more, instead of tally marks, like some of that to drive it home, because I kept thinking it was someone else. And even if he's fifth dimensional, the whole lineup with when he showed up as Clark, right? versus when he was in the cell at the same time as Tim Drake.
Well, yeah, but this is where he pops out. So he comes out, he escapes when Tim Drake's there, and then he, in his escape, jumps back in time and puts the spell on himself then. So he jumps back a few months.
Oh, man. I need the next issue.
I hope they do kind of address it. It's a little bit weird that...
It is.
Because obviously Tim Drake's there, so we know it's set, at least the escape is set, relatively present day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it has to be present day because people are still reacting to the death of Tim.
Yeah. And
so,
plus, we know Mr. Oz is going to be in the next issue of the crossover because he's on the cover, and it makes sense that he's going to pop up because he's going to come hunting for... Because now that the spell's been broken, now that Mixie has revealed himself, and now that he's not Fake Clark anymore...
Here's a question. Is it possible that arc of Detective just takes place before the start of action?
I don't think so.
I'd have to go back and check.
Because then that shifts every Bat book, because the Bat books all kind of refer to the death of Tim.
Yeah, it wouldn't work because Batman, the main Batman series references like this, what's going on in Detective. It's done that a few times with just the teammates and talking about the allies and stuff.
Right.
And then Batman, this current arc of Batman is set after Reborn because we've seen Superman had his new suit.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going with the time. That's why it muddled with me. I wish if it is Mixie, that's what they intended to have him be the guy that broke out. However, he did. It just doesn't line up. I don't see Mixie knocking down a wall to escape. I see he's a trickster. I'd see him tricking Oz into letting him out. You know, like.
Well, no, he didn't knock down a wall.
I feel like it's supposed to be something else.
Matt, they tell us in the issue.
Go back and see. In Superman.
No, in this issue
there was like that tower. I'm talking about in Superman when we see someone's escaped.
Mm-hmm.
That wall had been knocked down out of that tower.
Oh yeah, but maybe that's just physically what happened when he said his name backwards repeatedly to break out. That could have just been what was left behind.
Yeah, I just wish they were more clear on that, because I came in today thinking that it was still someone else, and this is just part of the greater mystery.
I mean, like I said, because I think it is because I'd read Morrison's Action Comics and I saw him, attacking through time. That was the whole crux of that arc. So it's like, well, he can just jump back in time, even if he didn't do it intentionally. Just his escape let him go back. Obviously, maybe he doesn't perceive time the same way we do. So maybe he just went back to when he thought it was. He didn't realize he'd gone back in time when he did it.
Possibly. Honestly, for me, it was just a case of the way he talks in this issue, the way he describes his story, everything just lined up with what we'd seen already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was definitely. I thought it was very clear he was the one in the cell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only part
I
for
believe
me,
you guys.
The only part for me that was muddy was the fact that wait a minute, Tim's there, and that was much later.
Yeah, and I just explained that with the time travel.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, but that's the thing. It's not as clear with the time travel. That's what's getting me, is they don't seem related to each other. That's all. So that sequence, it almost seems like they went back and added it after they decided it was. You know what I mean?
Went back and added what?
They went back and added the sequence of someone escaping after they had decided it was Mixie. Kind of to throw us off. Kind of.
I don't think so. Especially since it was only the issue before. Like, this would have been written together. To
I get that. It still is not. Tim being there, going, somebody got out after him trying to get out, right?
I hope that we actually see this now. If it is time travel, that'd be really cruel for Tim, because he's like, someone got out and then nothing happens for a while. Like the effects for him might be more interesting.
Right.
Well, no, that time isn't past yet though, because for Tim it's present day.
Well, yeah, we don't know.
Timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Timey-wimey. Anyways, the next issue should clear it up, because we get...
I don't know if it will.
We're still assuming that wherever Oz is inside normal time as well.
No.
Like if he's outside of time of some sort.
Yeah, he's definitely outside of time.
So if he's
'Cause-
outside of time, when Mixie escapes, he could just go, that's the closest point to where it was at that point, like in that direction. It wasn't necessarily aimed at the present, so to speak.
Yeah.
All I got from reading this is he tried to show up during New 52 and couldn't. Right? You get that early on. Mixie gets intercepted by Oz.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that's supposed to be whoever's messing with the timeline kept him out as to not have him ruin things. So, but we also get, because we got lost in the weeds there on his escape and whatever, but we get the thing that Superman never really forgot him. He still told John stories
yeah.
when John was little.
Purple Hat man, because
Purple Hat.
the
Rebel
name is hard
Cat.
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And so I like that Mixie goes and acts like Superman forgot him when he didn't. He's just had bigger things on his mind, and he thought that Mixie had grown up and didn't need to bother Superman anymore. And again, I like that whole relationship between the two. And as a Superman fan, it dawned on me that we really hadn't gotten Mixie in the New 52, because Morrison's Action Comics is kind of an outlier.
Yeah, and that was set even 5 years in the past for most of that.
Yeah. So this definitely made it seem like that Action Comics run really didn't happen the way we think that it did. Because
That's
if he
a fair
couldn't
point.
if he couldn't get there, then
Yeah. That said, does Mixie not say every 3 years or so, or 3 months?
3 months.
3 months. So even if that did happen at the start of the New 52, that was then at least 5 years until he showed
Right.
up again. So it could still have happened the way we saw.
okay. But I really like that story with him telling John and
Because
keeping that whole trickster angle.
he even says though that it's usually 3 months, but sometimes I forget, and maybe 2 years will go past, and he kind of
Yeah.
he builds in that kind of that fluctuation, so you can kind of argue it either way, I think.
So basically, Mixie's just saying that time's a flat circle.
Sure,
Is that what he's saying?
sure.
Pretty much.
Oh,
Which is
it's
why
good
I think that
esoteric.
leads into how he is in the past, that he doesn't really see
Right.
time the same way. He kind of just it's just whatever.
Right. And then he's just going through the motions being Clark Kent based off of almost kind of like muscle memory. He goes and lives in Clark's
Yeah.
old apartment and works at the Daily Planet and just all of this like subconscious stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if they will address it and make it clear that it was time travel or he's went back in time.
Yeah.
If they don't, I don't think it's a huge deal. But I do
No.
think it's something they could have made a bit clearer.
Yeah.
It definitely could have been clearer. Until they address it, I'm just going to assume it's that,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's what makes sense for me.
Exactly. Well, and then but the whole point of Mixie Patilic is he doesn't make sense.
That's a good point.
So, and we also see the different versions of him throughout time and the different spellings.
Yeah,
Animated
And-
series
Yeah.
version pops up.
I love the art in this backup. The way it just flows through all the different
Well,
styles of the time so
and
neatly.
Dini was the perfect person to write it too, because he's had experience with Mixie on all the different levels.
Yeah.
So, again, it's that meta kind of fifth dimensional Morrison of art affecting the real world and then that affecting the art back in a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the animated series is there in that same panel. I think Lego version of them is
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
The action figures are there. Like it,
You have the bit earlier on, in the bit where John's talking about the stories that he tells, and you have all the classic versions.
Mhm.
Like there's like Golden Age, Silver Age, whatever.
Which-
There's a few of them.
When I pulled him up to read more about him after this issue, I didn't realize that he was there from the start. He was a Simon & Schuster creation,
Mm.
In the 40s. Because his stuff always just screams to me not Golden Age, but Silver Age. Kind of like all the kryptonite
Yeah.
stories.
Which is what I really like about that panel of the stories. I don't recognize any of these stories well enough to know them, but I imagine they're very specific stories that it's referencing there that have happened in the comics. That's kind of cool.
yeah, was that.
Yep.
I obviously like this issue a lot. I think the first half dealt with the reveal very well. Gave us some stakes. Gave us the big big cliffhanger of Lois not remembering. Then the second half gave us John and Mixie like bouncing off each other, which was actually very interesting to see another kid, like a kid, handle Mixie and try and get out and try and get him to let him leave, and
so
Mixie tricking him.
So we know that Mixie, he's not. There's no ill will really towards Superman. Like, I'm sure he'll get over this by the end of Reborn, and it's Oz. It's the real big bad here. So, what if we get Mixie and Super Sons with Damian?
I really want Mixie to have an almost like a brother-like relationship with John.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I was to make a prediction right now, I'd probably guess that Mixie by the end of Reborn will help with whatever the merger is going to be.
As well.
I think so too, but I just like the idea that now that Superman doesn't need Mixie because he has John, but now
where Mixie does that leave Mixie?
Mixie can hang out with John. He can be like,
it's like, hey, you got a brother.
He can take any form. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that idea.
That's cool. I hope that gets capitalized on. Yeah.
Yeah,
because that'll be really disappointing if that's never brought up again.
Yeah, because I like Mixie as that character so I like what Morrison did with him in action. He made him kind of Supes' guardian, and there was a fifth dimensional bad guy. Yeah. That was doing all the bad things. So, for as powerful as he is, he doesn't mean any harm. He'll fix things as soon as you trick him to say his name. But
just like
John and Mixie. Yeah, get on it, DC.
Yeah. No, it was super good. No pun intended. Obviously, part 3 of Superman Reborn is next week, and I
feel like it'll be a bit meatier going forward because obviously this was all about the reveal.
Yeah.
So now we can get into the rest of the story, so to speak.
And the first issue was the disappearance of John and what's going on.
Yeah, so you have to set up the reveal.
Well, here's the thing though. So far, none of this has been about Superman's like reality or merging things or dealing with Oz. Like all of it. I mean, obviously Oz was pissed at the start of the first issue that someone escaped, but other than that, it's all been about Fate Clark and the reveal. All of it.
Yeah. And both issues moved very fast just because of the art and the emotion behind them. So hopefully the next ones are, like Connor said,
so I'm even wondering what is the issue that comes up that needs to result in some sort of
what is the
merging
cause of whatever of the end result that we know we're getting to?
Yeah, because we've got 2 issues left and I don't know what it is, and I'm excited to see